Hi, I'm George Yancey. Let's shatter some paradigms. Now, what do I mean by shattering paradigms? That's a good question. I got Shattering Paradigms from the second most important book I ever read, behind the Bible, as far as my intellectual thinking. And that is The Structure of Scientific Revolution, written by Thomas Kuhn. You see, when I went to graduate school, I had this notion that academics were white, were old men who were constantly searching for the truth. Well, it's pretty clear that academics are not just old and white and men. And it was really clear to me that they weren't just always searching for the truth. In fact, a lot of times they already thought they knew the truth. It was just trying to prove it. And that's where Kuhn's book really came in. It was really meaningful to me. You see, Kuhn talks about paradigms. And what he means by paradigms is that these frameworks that tell us what questions we can ask, what the answers are, and how we are supposed to find those answers. And that's what I saw happening. Academics were not searching for the truth, they already knew the answers. Now, Kuhn also said that sometimes the answers become so obviously bad that we become open and we search for the truth. And what we usually find is a new paradigm. And that new paradigm then gives us the questions we can ask, the answers, and how we find those answers. That is what's meant by the paradigm. Kuhn argues that science is really only done in the revolution, when we go from one paradigm to the other, because that's the only time in which we're really looking at all the evidence and trying to find the best answer, rather than reinforcing the paradigm we already believe. I used to have a blog by the name of Shattering Paradigms, and now I want a YouTube channel by the name of Shattering Paradigms, because paradigms is what I think we should shatter, especially as Christians. I'm in a unique position to shatter paradigms. I am an African American, conservative Christian, theologically, in academia. This puts me at the intersection of a lot of different ways of thinking, and sometimes helps me to see how some paradigms need to be shattered. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that I'm objective and I can see all things and I'm not swayed by my own internal paradigms. Of course I am. But it helps me to shatter paradigms that we see. I find Christians too often are locked into paradigms, sometimes on the left, sometimes on the right, sometimes in their own subculture, and not really live the way God wants us to live, not really change society the way I think God wants us to change society. And that's what I'm about. So, as this conservative Christian in academia, what do I mean by shattering paradigms? What are examples of shattering paradigms? Let me give you a couple of examples. First, as an African American, of course, I'm concerned about racial issues. I am considered a race scholar because I've published peer-reviewed articles and academic books on race. I find that the answer offered to us in academia centers around critical theories. Sometimes it's critical race theory, sometimes it's some version of anti-racism, sometimes it's Afrocentrism. There are different theories that academics are trying to use to solve the racial problems in our society. And for a variety of reasons, as I've experienced and as I've studied, these theories fail to provide answers that we can use. Now, they do have some truth in them. I'm in a position where I use my faith and my science to strive after answers. And my faith is one that's heavily cognitively based. Yes, I have faith, but a lot of it is driven by thinking through issues. So as I look at those answers, I know that they're not going to succeed. When I talk to many of my conservative Christian friends, they offer a different answer. They say we should ignore race, be colorblind. And that sounds appealing, but I know that fails too. Those two paradigms do not work. I want to shatter those paradigms. I think the Bible, with the concept of human depravity, offers us something better. Now, I don't have time to go into that in this introductory YouTube. I have a playlist on race and the racial paradigms and shattering it. I invite you to check out that playlist. I'll leave a link to one of the videos in the playlist below. Here's another way in which I can shatter paradigms. Academics often study discrimination, bias, prejudice, oppressions, and that's a good thing. They usually study it among African Americans or racial minorities, sexual minorities, women, the poor. However, that's not enough. I have found that there is prejudice, there is bias against Christians in academia. Just one example. One semester when I was an adjunct, I was teaching both sociology of race and ethnicity and sociology of religion. No one had a problem with me teaching sociology of race and ethnicity. A lot of people had a problem with me teaching sociology of religion. Why? I'm a Christian. I'm biased, right? Well, you know, if an atheist teaches sociology of religion, he or she would be biased. And why weren't people worried about my bias as an African American teaching race and ethnicity? You see, there is a bias, and it's in our society against Christians in certain areas, academics being one of them. I've been quoted as saying before, I face more prejudice as a Christian in academia than as an African American. And that is still true. Given this, what I call Christianophobia is real. I've written about it. I've done peer-reviewed books on it. And it is something that I also think is a paradigm that needs to be shattered. And it's a paradigm I want to shatter. I too have a playlist on anti-Christian bigotry. I'll leave a link in the description where you can see that a video in that paradigm of that playlist and decide if you want to look at it. So those are a couple of paradigms that I think need to be shattered. But I have other topics that I'm developing and have posted or will post on identity politics. I'm doing some interesting work on that. The differences between conservative and progressive Christians. I think that's something that we should think about. And also, I'm studying white progressives. Now, you may ask why. As a Christian, do I want to study white progressives? Well, my work has led me to this because white progressives are the ones with the most hostility towards Christians. And that hostility, I believe, and I've documented, drives some of their attitudes and probably actions. So, these are some of the paradigms. I'll have some one-off videos. I may go in other areas. The key is to think outside the paradigm. This is kind of a dangerous, risky way to go about it. It's easier for me to go all right or all left or all into a certain subculture and get an audience that way. Because even if you agree with me that we should not fall into these paradigms, you may disagree with me on certain issues and you may be turned off. This may be a difficult audience to cultivate. But I think there's a lot of people like me out there, a lot of Christians like me out there, who don't want to be trapped into these paradigms, who want to emerge and be different and have an impact on our society because we're not trapped in these paradigms. If that's you, I hope you would join me. I hope that we can have great discussions and think through these issues much more deeply. Now, like any content creator, you know what I want? I want you to hit the like button. I want you to comment. I want you to subscribe. The more I get that, the more encouraged I am that people are listening and we're having these conversations, the more content I'm going to be motivated to create. The less, then the less. I'm going to try to be consistent, but of course, those things matter. If you know someone who's interested, please come talk to them. Go tell them about this channel and have them check it out. You know now a little bit of what I'm about. I want to shatter paradigms, and I want you to help me shatter those paradigms. Does this shatter some paradigms for you? Think about an African American, theologically conservative Christian in academia who wants to stretch the edges of race and anti-Christian bigotry and identity politics and such. If so, then please come back and check out some more of my videos as we try once more to shatter some paradigms.